What you're looking at right now is the most remote state park on the entire east coast of the United States. No roads in, no parking lot, just the Virginia coastline that 99% of Americans have never seen and never will. But before we get there, we need to talk about a place called Devil's Bathtub. Forget the colonial Williamsburg brochures and the Shenandoah selfie spots. Virginia holds secrets, places where history whispers from crumbling stone, where nature defies every expectation, and where the true spirit of exploration still thrives. This isn't about ticking off a list, it's about uncovering the soul of a state that few ever truly see. If you're ready to go beyond the obvious, buckle up. This is Unseen Virginia. Virginia is one of America's most historically layered states, but the version most people see, the monuments, the vineyards, the skyline, that's the surface. These 10 places are what's underneath it. Some you'll need to hike to. One, you'll need a boat. All of them are worth it. We're starting in Scott County, the far southwestern corner of Virginia, a part of the state that most Virginians have never visited. And the reason we're starting here is a name. Devil's Bathtub isn't a metaphor. It's a natural rock formation carved into the Blue Ridge geology by Straight Fork Creek, a series of swirling sandstone pools and cascades that look designed rather than formed. The precision of the curves, the depth of the basins, it begs the question of how water alone achieved this, and over how many thousands of years. What makes this place different from every other waterfall on this list is how you get there. The trail to Devil's Bathtub is inside the creek. You're not crossing the water, you're walking through it. Half a mile of wading, boots soaked from the first minute, to reach pools so perfectly sculpted they look mechanical. That discomfort is the price of admission, and every person who makes it there will tell you it was worth it. Late spring or early summer is your window. Flash flooding is a real risk in this canyon. Check the forecast before you commit to the hike. This is a place that demands respect and rewards the prepared explorer. From something named for the devil, we now journey to something that looks like it fell straight out of a painting. Cascade Falls sits inside Jefferson National Forest, and at 66 feet, it's one of the most visually dramatic waterfalls in the entire state. The water frees itself from Hankey's Creek and drops through a forest canopy so dense that even in summer, the light arrives in fragment, catching the mist, lighting the spray from below. It is the kind of place that makes you stop walking and just stand there. What most people don't know is that this is one of the few Virginia waterfalls where you can legally swim beneath the falls. The pool at the base is deep enough, the current is manageable enough that the Forest Service permits it, which is rarer than it sounds. The hike is 4 miles round trip, moderate difficulty. Water levels peak between March and May. If you visit in summer, aim for late afternoon. The crowd's thin and the light improves at exactly the same time. I want to stop for a moment, because the next place on this list is something I genuinely wasn't sure how to categorize. Abandoned Renaissance Faire. Outside Lake Anna, there is a stretch of Virginia woodland where medieval stonework is slowly being reclaimed by forest. Stone towers, arched gateways, jousting lanes so overgrown you can only identify them by the width of the clearing. This is what remains of a Virginia Renaissance fair that was built not as a temporary attraction, but as a permanent medieval village. The people who constructed it built in stone. Structures designed to stand for centuries. The business didn't survive long enough to see them age. What's left is one of the most visually dissonant places in the state. A stone tower rising above Virginia pines, permanently confused about what era it belongs in. These structures were never intended to be ruins. They became ruins anyway, making it a frozen accident of ambition, preserved not by intention, but by abandonment. This is technically private property, so verify access status before visiting. Late afternoon gives you the best light for photography, when the sun hits the stone directly, and the shadows start to define the gaps in the masonry. Now, we head to the coast, and we're not going for the beach. Assateague Island sits on Virginia's eastern shore, a barrier island with no permanent development, and a herd of wild ponies that has lived there for centuries. The most accepted theory traces them to a colonial-era shipwreck. The more colorful theory traces them to 17th century farmers who swam their livestock to the island to avoid mainland taxes. Historians disagree. The horses don't care. What makes this place extraordinary isn't just the horses, it's the absence of barriers. There are no fences between the herd and the visitor. These animals are wild. They have never been domesticated. They roam the beach, the marsh, and the dunes on their own schedule, and they will approach you if you're still enough. The National Park Service is very clear. Do not feed them. The fine is $150. The bite is free. Fall and winter bring smaller crowds and better light for photography. Early morning is your strongest window for wildlife proximity. This is one of those places where the patience of an early start pays off disproportionately. Before we keep going, if Virginia is already surprising you, hit subscribe. There are more states in this series and you will not want to miss them. Here is a piece of American history that almost no one outside of Virginia Beach knows exists. Cape Henry Lighthouse was the first federal construction project authorized by the United States Congress, signed into law in 1791. It is older than the Capitol building, older than the White House, and it still stands at Fort Story, largely unknown to the outside world because reaching it requires checking in at a military security gate. That friction, a valid ID, a brief checkpoint, is precisely why most tourists never show up. And it is precisely why it belongs on this list. The lighthouse is a climb, 191 steps to a lantern room with a view of the Chesapeake Bay entrance that hasn't changed in 230 years. From the top, you can see exactly what the first American sailors saw when they made landfall in the New World. Open to the public most weekends through the Association for the Preservation of Virginia Antiquities. Bring a photo, ID, verify the schedule before you drive out. Military base access can close without much notice. What if I told you there was a Virginia plantation where one of the most important figures in the Civil War is buried on the property, but not in the way you'd expect? Ellwood Manor in Orange County was commandeered as a Union headquarters during the Wilderness Campaign of 1864. But it's what happened a year earlier, a few miles away at Chancellorsville, that gives this property its strange distinction. Stonewall Jackson was wounded at Chancellorsville in May of 1863. His left arm was amputated. His staff buried it on the grounds of Ellwood Manor. The rest of Jackson is buried in Lexington. There is a grave marker here. It reads, Arm of Stonewall Jackson, May 3rd, 1863. This is believed to be the only grave marker in the United States dedicated specifically to a limb. The property is now part of the Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania National Military Park, free to visit, and almost no one comes. NPS coordinates are the most reliable way to find it. Signage is minimal. This is a place that rewards people who do the research. Richmond, Virginia is the city where Edgar Allan Poe grew up, and it kept his legacy in a building that predates him by more than a century. Poe Museum. The Poe Museum sits inside the oldest surviving structure in Richmond, a 1737 stone building housing the world's largest collection of Poe memorabilia. Not the horror, not the mythology, the man, original manuscripts, personal letters, artifacts from his Richmond years, his time at the University of Virginia, his compressed and restless life. The museum reconstructed Poe's actual bedroom from his university days down to the original furniture dimensions. It is smaller than most walk-in closets. There is something quietly unsettling about standing in a space that small and understanding that this is where the American tradition of psychological horror was first assembled. Poe didn't write in grand studies. He wrote in rooms like this. Open Tuesday through Sunday, $10 admission. The Shockoe Bottom neighborhood surrounding it has some of Richmond's best restaurants. This is worth building a full day around. Still in Richmond, but we're leaving the museum and stepping into something far older and far less explained. Belle Isle is a James River island accessible only by a pedestrian footbridge from Tredegar Street. On that island are the ruins of an 1800s ironworks facility, and beneath the ruins, the memory of a Civil War prison camp that held as many as 6,000 Union soldiers at its peak. In an open-air camp, in Virginia winters, with almost no shelter, the survival rate was grim enough that Belle Isle became part of the political argument for prisoner exchanges. A piece of Civil War history that changed the arc of the war, happening on an island that most Richmond residents have never visited. What you see today is industrial architecture slowly becoming forest. Stone walls, brick archways, ironwork frames, all backdropped by the James River Rapids and a waterfall that catches the late afternoon light in a way that feels entirely at odds with the history underneath it. Free, open daily. Golden hour here is extraordinary. Plan accordingly. Now we go to a place where you can pick up a piece of legend directly off the ground. Fairy Stone State Park sits in Patrick County in the Blue Ridge foothills, and it exists because of a geological phenomenon found almost nowhere else on Earth. Storolite crystals, formed deep underground under extreme heat and pressure, sometimes emerge at the surface in the shape of a cross. The Cherokee called them fairy stones. They carried them as protection. The legend said the stones formed from the tears of fairies who wept at the news of Christ's death, which is the kind of story that attaches itself to a place and never lets go. Theodore Roosevelt carried one. Woodrow Wilson carried one. Thomas Edison reportedly kept one in his pocket. The geological odds of Storlight forming a perfect cross rather than an X are roughly 1 in 100, which means most of what you find will be close but not perfect, which is exactly why people spend hours looking. This is one of the only places in the world where visitors can legally hunt and keep the crystals. Bring a small mesh bag. A light rain softens the soil and makes stones easier to spot. Morning is the best window. Virginia State Park Day, use fee applies. It is worth every cent. And finally, the place I showed you at the very beginning, the place with no roads in. False Cape State Park sits at the end of a 4-mile trail through Back Bay National Wildlife Refuge, or it can be reached by water taxi from Virginia Beach. There is no parking lot on site, no gift shop, no cell service worth mentioning. What there is, an undeveloped barrier island beach, wild ponies that share the coastline with Assateague's herd, migratory birds in numbers that stop you mid-stride, and a silence so complete it feels like a different country. The name comes from 18th century sailors who mistook this cape for Cape Henry, a navigation error that put more than a few ships on the bottom of the Atlantic. The cape kept the name, it kept the remoteness, it kept everything that makes it the kind of place 99% of Americans will never stand on. Not because they can't, but because the effort required filters for exactly the kind of traveler who actually belongs there. Primitive camping is available, reserved through the Virginia State Park system months in advance. A water taxi operates seasonally from Virginia Beach for those who don't want the full hike. Bring everything you need. There is nothing there but the place itself, and that is entirely the point. Virginia doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. These 10 places exist quietly, on the other side of the obvious, waiting for the people who bother to look. The ones who drive past the Welcome Center, past the billboard, past the version of Virginia everyone already knows, and ask what's actually out here. If this video changed how you see Virginia, hit like, subscribe for more unseen places, and comment on which spot you'd visit first. If this video made you dream, plan, or start pulling up maps, you will love the next video. Click here. The next wonder is one click away.